This presentation will address the idea of excuses and the language that you use when you try to describe certain situations. Albert Ellis actually came up with the idea of stinkin' thinking, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But the idea of having faulty thought patterns is really important to understand because you can't change them unless you're aware of them and you actually know what they are. Your thought patterns are very influenced by your attitude and your perception, and both of those shape your reactions to situations, whether that's in your language and your speech or your actual behavior itself. Unfortunately, we tend to be very impulsive and we speak before we think and we act out of emotion rather than out of reason. So we have to sometimes step back and think and realize that the action itself, the situation, isn't causing the consequence. It's that idea in our head, those voices of the inner critic and even the inner defender that actually creates those situations. Unfortunately, a really strong inner critic voice both causes and affects low self-esteem. So we have to be very conscious and very cognizant of that inner critic. As I said, we were going to talk a little bit more about Albert Ellis. He came up with this idea that an activating event, whatever situation it might be, plus your beliefs about that event will actually impact the consequences. So, in a nutshell, you have thoughts that create feelings, your feelings create behavior, and then your behavior actually reinforces those thoughts. So when we actually experience a situation, an activity, whatever it might be, we respond to that situation by interpreting it from our experience, our beliefs, our values, our understandings. And then we actually react to that. We experience the consequential feelings based on the experience itself and how we've processed it. So we can actually change the way we think, feel, and react to things, but that means we have to change our belief system. That sounds like a pretty major ordeal, but we're not talking about changing monumental beliefs and values like maybe your religious beliefs or your political points of view. We're talking about the way that you think about tasks and the way that you approach your way of studying and your feelings about yourself with your self-esteem. So changing a thought pattern like you're not worthy of going to college or you'll never be smart enough to pass math, those are things that we can work with and change those beliefs and thought patterns. There is a handout called Ellis's 12 Irrational Beliefs related to unhelpful thinking styles, and it's worth taking a look at because it will really help you understand more about yourself and some of these irrational beliefs that you may actually possess yourself. It's really important to understand how to dispute them too, because if you don't know how to combat them, they're just going to keep existing and keep getting stronger. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to find some kind of evidence that your judgment is wrong. So you're reacting to a situation, you're behaving in a certain way, but you need to realize, maybe that's not the best way. Next, you want to look at it from a positive perspective. Maybe there's a different reason behind this situation. Maybe this occurred because of something that wasn't so negative. Maybe I didn't fail the math test because I'm an inferior human being and I will never understand math. Maybe I didn't pass the math test because I hadn't done the homework and I really didn't review and put enough study time into it. That's a changeable and manageable task to fix. Next, you really need to look at the importance of the problem. Are you spending energy on something of quality and meaning and relevance, or are you spending time on something that really is not going to help move you closer to your goal? My best example for that is the problem that you're dwelling on. Are you complaining about it? If you're spending a lot of time complaining, that's not really effective use of your time. Finally, you want to always have a plan, and we come back to that creator behavior, that accountability and a plan. So you see the situation, you try to reevaluate this situation, you examine and analyze your beliefs, your understanding of it, your reactions to it, and say, is this the way that I want to react in this situation and in the future should this situation arise again? I love this quote from Hamlet because, again, it's all about your perspective and your perception of a situation. I have some examples here for you that are related to Ellis's theory, but I think it does really lay out some concrete ideas for you to understand irrational beliefs. So when you are thinking about that evidence, like I just pointed out to you previously, you can get an idea of how the inner defender works. You can look at the positive explanation of a problem and dispute that inner critic. You can question the importance of a problem, and there again is that inner defender making excuses. And then offering a plan to improve the situation, that's where that inner guide can come in and really fight that inner defender off. Now, those are just the concepts that fall behind excuses and language and behavior. Now you actually have to think about the words and the attitude behind those words. When you talk about a situation, a problem, a concern, an issue, how do you state it? Do you state it with accountability and a plan like a creator would do? Do you offer a solution? Or does it seem more like a complaint? Does it seem like you've got an aha moment? Hey, if I do this, then this might happen in a positive way? Do you see some kind of opportunity? Or is it just a negative? If this wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't be in this situation. Do you just sound defeated and feel like you're surrendering to the situation? So we really want to stay away from complaints because, again, it's really not effective use of our time and it really doesn't solve any problems. So let's look at some examples here of translating victim to creator language. We're only going to do a couple just to illustrate the idea. A lot of times students will say that they don't understand directions, so they just won't even do an assignment. Now that's a very victim perspective. Directions are confusing, I can't do the work. If you look at it more in creator language, you would have that same situation. You still don't understand the instructions, but your accountability and a plan is, I'm going to contact my instructor as soon as possible so I can get it done before the deadline. Here's another example. My brother's always on the computer, so I can't use it. Well, that's very victim language. Again, you have a situation and you sound helpless and you sound like you're just self-defeated. So the creator perspective would be, I know my brother's going to be on the computer a lot, so I'll stay after class and use the computers in the library before I leave campus. Another example, I'm horrible about time management and miss assignments a lot. So again, you're a victim. I have this bad habit, and so it's creating these circumstances. It sounds as though there's nothing that you can do about the situation. Creator language, again, offers accountability and a plan. I know I need help to stay on track, so I'll download the Pulse app to remind me of upcoming deadlines for assignments. No matter how hard I study, I'm just no good in math. Again, that very absolute mentality where you're never going to be good in math. You're never going to understand it. It's some intrinsic quality in you that's problematic. So a creator would look at it and say, math has always been a struggle for me, so I'll go to the Academic Support Center and work with a tutor and go to supplemental instruction sessions. So again, you can see some real victim statements there with the inner defender that's blaming people or making excuses, or the inner critic. The inner defender would be the ones like, my brother is always on the computer. It's not your brother's fault that he's using the computer. Or making excuses. I miss assignments because I'm horrible about time management. That's an excuse. Then if you look at the inner critic, it would be something like, I'm just no good in math, because you're making that statement about yourself and your talents or skills or lack thereof. The final thought I want to leave you with is that your thoughts become words. That language is so important, not only in the way that you are understood by other people and the type of reaction you're going to get from other people, but also in the way that you create your own attitude with those words. So your thoughts become words, which become your actions. Your actions become your habits, and your habits become your character. Don't let the negativity drive your character.